Hello, hi. Oh, cool. So everyone understands English. Everyone understands my version of English, right? You all hear the voices in my head? Not all of them. Be glad. Some of them are my children at 1 o'clock in the morning going, Papa, ik wil ha van. And I was getting up at 5:30 to go on a flight, and I was like, okay. And apparently that my children are will only accept me giving them water. Otherwise, if my wife goes in, they will kick up a storm, which my wife exploits maliciously on me, going, get out of bed, go fix the children. Okay. So this is Hacking Your Neighbor and Other Life Skills. Today I'm going to show you how to break all the things. And I am bound by law to give you a disclaimer. Don't do this against your neighbors. Even though the title says to, don't do this against your neighbors because you will end up like bad neighbors. You will end up like my neighbors who are wondering why their Wi-Fi doesn't work. They're wondering why they're getting charges on their Amazon or gift cards. They're wondering why they're getting deliveries from strange things at 4 o'clock in the morning. Usually me going, will you turn off the music? And I joke a little bit because the reason this talk evolved was purely from an incident that happened. So I was setting up a Wi-Fi Pineapple. You've all seen this device? It's a rogue access point. And I was setting this up and I was getting ready for, I think it was possibly a security day about 2 years ago here. And I was getting all my gear and I'm doing my usual prep. And I leave this thing in my living room and I go out to collect my kids from kindergarten. And I come back and I'm wondering how far the reach on this thing is. So I'm sitting outside in our garage and I'm like, I can still see this. And I start seeing all the different Wi-Fi points kicking up. And it's like, and they're alphabetic. And I was like, that's new. It's the name of my neighbor and a number. I wonder, is that his Wi-Fi password? I was like, let me check. It is his Wi-Fi password. I was like, this is awesome. So this is how Hacking Your Neighbors came as an evolution. So if you've never met me before, my name is Niall. I am the head of cybersecurity at Capgemini here in Norway. Yes, we're hiring. I do want to recruit all cool people. And I want to get all mad people to work with me because it makes me funner. I am a most valuable professional from an MVP from Microsoft, specifically in DevSec. I'm an ASP Insider Azure Advisor. Tweet me because I do answer tweets. Emails, not so much. Much to the chagrin of my boss. And you can visit our website, or if you're really, really masochistic and don't like yourself, go to my website. Now, this is a talk about hacking, and people generally ask me, why on earth do you want to teach people how to hack other people? And I have one answer for this, and it's this particular quote: you can only fight the way you practice. I.e., how many of you have learned to drive? Hands up if you can't drive. Okay, I can't really see, but I'm assuming no one put up their hands. But you know, when you learned to drive, you didn't get in a simulator, did you? No, you got in a car, white-knuckled, sweat dripping down your back, and someone said, drive, and you went, okay. And you literally kept gripping the steering wheel as hard as possible, but you got through it. Now imagine doing that in a simulator and being told, after you passed your exam, now go out and drive with other crazy people. Now I learned to driving a motorbike for the first time. Now, when I was told about this, I said, like, the instructor goes, he says, right, Niall, congratulations, you've got a bike. Do you have an organ donor card? And I said, why? He goes, because you just became one. I said, on a very fast machine. I was like, okay, good choice, man, good talk. And then he says, no, it's like driving a car with a 2-meter spike relatively this close to your body. And if you make a mistake, you're dead, all right? So that is why when I learned to drive a car, I was exceptionally defensive. I was watching everyone. I said, you're all crazy. I'm going to kill you all before you kill me, all right? But I learned to drive on a road like everyone else. And if you're a boxer, you box against the bag to train, to get fit, but you box against an opponent to learn what it looks like and what it feels like, A, to get hit, and how to anticipate your opponent's moves. It's the same thing with hacking techniques. If you don't understand how the hack works, you will never know how to defend against it. It's like the idea of when most of us get alarms in houses. We get them after we've been broken into. For example, my parents. We live in the back arse of nowhere in Ireland. There is 500 meters between any of our neighbors. It's fantastic. It's lovely. It's like Norwegian ideal living conditions. You know, hitta, but except with toilets that work. Now, the thing is, I'm there and I'm like going, we came home one day and we found a block in the bathroom. It's not meant to be there. there's broken glass, and we go around, we find 2 computers missing, we find everything missing. My parents' first initial reaction was, we're buying an alarm. And I went, how is that going to help? We're 500 meters from anybody, what's going to happen? They'll hear this thing and go, oh, that's nice. And then, because no one's going to come to your aid, she goes, well, it'll make me feel safe. And I said, okay. So this is the idea why if they understood the attack first, they might have done something beforehand, but because they still don't understand the attack or why someone did it, they're just applying defensive measures. It's the same thing like we do inside in airlines. We now have to go through scanners. We now have to take off our shoes. We have to take away all the liquids. These are all reactionary things that have been done based on someone going, I wonder if they check for that. Do you know how to beat most airline kind of systems? Use extra 2 or 3 things extra, and they won't notice. So just shove, like if you've got more than 100 milliliters of fluid, put an extra bag somewhere over here, and they probably don't see it. It'll go through, because they're only checking for that if you've got more than that bag. If they don't see it, they won't do it. And that's the hacking. It's also how to hack, for example, how to get lounge access at an airport. Do you know how to get lounge access in an airport? Seriously? Okay. So you have a person who's got their ticket, and they go into the lounge. The next person going after them, they're automatically granted because they're the guest of the other one. So just wait there. Not suspicious at all in an airport. Beep, whoop, off you go. So that's just a joke, but this was a talk I saw once before where a guy showed me how to do it with QR codes, and where people put up their QR codes on Twitter, and you just go searching for people who have been there, use that QR code then to get into a lounge. It's not a great way to travel. Just saying. So, what I'm going to show you today is a lot of things like strategy, how we do the recon, how we find information about our attacks, how we go looking for vulnerabilities, how we exploit said vulnerabilities, and also kind of some social engineering and other advanced techniques that I'd like to show off because it's a lot of fun. And also, I thought this was a great picture of a cat reading military strategy, which is literally how I see most cats in general when they look at people. You're just a larger meal to them. And I have a cat, and she's lovely. But anyway, I do say this seriously. Please don't do this at home. Please don't do this against systems you don't own. Please don't do this against people you like. Please don't do this against people you don't like. It's a very broad scenario, but the thing is, a lot of the tools I'm going to show you today have offensive capabilities. In other words, they are designed to break into stuff. And people don't like stuff being broken into because people like to feel safe. And I don't want to take that away from them, but I want you to understand that for every single tool I'm going to show you, there's a defense against it, but they're usually just doing a single exploit. But please, for the love of God and for the love of staying out of Norwegian cells and things like that, don't do this at home. Now, with that in mind, let me show you how to get arrested. This is Kali Linux. Kali is a Debian-based distro, Linux distro, built from the ground up with a load of security tools involved. Anyone use Kali already today? Cool. So everyone's going to know what that is. That's awesome. If you don't, go download the torrent file. It's one of the few legit reasons to use a torrent client. And you can install this and put it on a VMware box and do mad things with it. But some of the stuff I'm going to show you today specifically involves some of these specific tools, which is like the Nmap, which is the Nmap project, or Nmap, which is a network mapping protocol. It's one of the best reconnaissance tools out there. So how many of you when you go to a Wi-Fi network or anything like that, snoop and check who else is on the network with you? Aaron, stop that. By the way, how's your country? Oh, good. So there's a running joke. Back in 2013 at GoToCon in Aarhus, Aaron had presented just before me, and the country had shut down, I think, just that morning. And we're here again presenting, and we're faced with a similar thing. Coincidence? I think not. We're not allowed in the same country anymore, as far as I can understand. Now, with Network Mapper, we do this a lot where you will actually scan and see what other people are on the network with you. You might find some interesting devices like printers, point-of-sale devices, heart machines, other things like that. It's a very interesting thing to do. I don't recommend doing it at hospitals. People get a bit upset. When my brother was in the ICU, the intensive care unit, I was sitting in the waiting room waiting. And the first thing I do is I flick up my phone and see what Wi-Fi is available. I see hospital, Draeger, heart starter, and Draeger ventilation machine. And I'm thinking, better not connect to those. You can imagine, there I am downloading Imager while someone's trying to get breath out of them. It's not going to work. But Network Mapper is very good for finding things. There's some open source tools that I'm going to show you today as well, which are very, very cool for finding things. Metasploit, which is the granddaddy of exploitation tools. It allows you to, without having to know a lot of difficult commands, it weaponizes all the vulnerabilities for you and allows you to exploit them remotely or locally, whatever. And finally, I'm going to show you a thing called Beef. Now, Beef is one of my favorite little projects because besides having an absolutely cool name, it is a really interesting way of why you should be using HTTPS and why, if you get hacked or websites get hacked, what you can do with more advanced XSS than your vanilla alert 1. Now, again, public service announcement number 2. Don't do this, okay? Without a get-out-of-jail-free card. If you are a professional pen tester, one of the things you always ask for is a scope of engagement, and the second thing you ask for is, can I get a get-out-of-jail-free card? I.e., if I break your system so badly that you doomed, you dead, you don't come after me with all the fullest extent of the law. It's literally the thing that says, get out of jail free. You get these cards, they're very handy. But I will recommend that you kind of go look at this in a controlled environment, set up a couple of VMs in the cloud or locally, and go play with all the tools I'm going to show you today. It's a lot of fun. It does kind of get you from the I know nothing to holy crap, my neighbors are doomed. All right? Okay. So with that in mind, let's start with some reconnaissance. And we learn, firstly, how we're going to find where information lives. And the first thing I want to talk to you about is what is known as a CVE, or Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures. Now, what this is a method for a centralized method for people to put together a list of all the vulnerabilities on product, but also to get a nice number on it so you can be assured that everyone's counting off the same kind of book. And for me, it's a real good way to find out what's wrong in the world. Because when people publish CVEs, they tell you what's wrong. It's great. So you learn about vulnerabilities. So how many of you patch regularly? Yeah. How many of you know what the second Tuesday in every month is? Patch Tuesday, great. What's the second Wednesday in every month? Rollback Wednesday. It didn't work. Whoop. Or, you know, every system administrator is a month out of date. If you're a SharePoint administrator, you're 6 months out of date because no one wants to try and fix SharePoint. I can tell you that much. They've tried hard, a number of versions. Now, the thing here is that you get different CVS scores or CVSS scores based on how bad it is. And 9 to 10 is bad. Very, 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 very bad. So I went looking for what is bad. And I said, okay, let's go look at what the latest one is. The latest, like number 9, is from Cisco WebEx Network Recording Player for Advanced, blah, blah, blah. It allows a remote code execution. Now, do you know what remote code execution is? Excellent. Jackpot. It's because you're there, you go, exploit, and it goes, boom. Another person goes, what just happened? And you own the machine. You don't have to do anything. You can be anywhere in the world. Someone can do things, and you remotely execute code. Really cool. But we also find things like, for example, command injection, OS command injection, remote code injection, authenticated shell command injection. You kind of see a pattern with this. Command injection is bad, Kai. So when people are, that's a nod to the Canadians, just a little bit, or South Park, I think. So this is where we tell people, keep an eye on this on a day-to-day basis. There is a Twitter feed that does this to show you all this kind of information. If you have products you use on a day-to-day basis, go in here and check it. If you have an ASUS router, throw it out the window. If you have a TP-Link router, throw it out the window. D-Link router, throw it out the window. Netgear router, yeah, throw it out the window. So all of these things have very bad vulnerabilities, usually remote code exec and other things, which means that people can go find them. You can go and get information a bit more as well from NIST, which gives you more kind of things. I just went looking for SQLi. SQL injection was coined in 1998, right? It's 20 years ago. In internet terms, it should be dead. You know, it's old. It's allowed to die now. It's on life support, but people keep bringing it back and making it better. It's like, it's ridiculous. It's like Donald Trump just being reborn or evaluated, and I don't know what it is. But seriously, this is still going on. And you can see like the last number is 2017, 1587. The funny thing is, they're numbered from 2017, the year number, then a 4-digit number and going up. And as I understand, I think 80% of them are flash vulnerabilities from 2017. And the rest are Java or something like that. But in general, most things in there are Flash, and that's why it's dying in 2019. We've only got 1 year left as hackers to really exploit it. Thanks. Anyway, If you want to go find out how to exploit the things, you go to the exploit database, aptly named, because where else would you find things? In an exploit database. And they have things like remote exploit, web application exploits. I loaded this today, and it tells me that SQL injection is still a thing, again, as you can see, and it's all in PHP. Now, I always make the joke, and I offended a couple of people by saying, what does PHP stand for? Yeah, you got the real thing. I call it pretty horrible programming. But do you know why there's so many SQL injection attacks in PHP? It's not because PHP is a crap language. In fact, it's a very good language. Why is there so many attacks in PHP? Because there's such a low barrier to entry. It's a LAMP stack. You fire it up. Everything works. It's all free. Cool. It can run on absolutely anything. And then people go to things like the code project and says, give me a command string that will connect to a database. It works. Boom. Yay. And then they go off and sell a WordPress plugin. All right? And then someone goes, oh, you've made the same mistake. Blink. And that's how you make money from bug bounties. When people make stupid mistakes and you recognize the stupid mistake, you automate to find it and then make money from the bug bounty. So if you want to go and say, well, you know, this looks hard, Niall. I only know how to use the internet, like for Google. We do have a thing called the Google Hacking Database, which is pretty awesome. And this is a list of Google dorks that can get you to find different information around the web, which Google is very good at finding. Now, I do highlight the one that says files containing passwords. Because, you know, we all like to think that it's hard, we have to go off and crack a password, we have to kind of go brute force it. Wouldn't it be just easier if I could just Google it? So we can. And if you go Googling it, specifically something like this, where I go information, blah, blah, blah. But the one I like to show is anyone who's a .NET developer here? Okay, ASP.NET, great. You know web config? Great. What can't you do with web config? Well, you can't access it over IIS, over HTTP, right? HTTPS. But you can access it over FTP, no problem. And people leave that open. So you just Google it. I love this one. There you go. There you go. And it's just, you can go download it if you want. There's no problem, and there's probably stuff inside there. Though, that said, I did notice if you do try and Google this, Google goes, I think you're up to no good. Are you sure you're not a robot? Sure. It says, don't be evil. Sure, why not? Anyway, if you want to learn how to do XSS, there's a really good one here called the Open Bug Bounty, which is a group of pen testers who are looking very specifically how to do XSS attacks, and they put up how they found them, and it's still very, very common. You can see here how Amazon, LinkedIn, etc., all have been pwned at some point with XSS attacks, and they do kind of report these things. Troy showed this morning how to use Shodan, and he said, well, you can find boring stuff in it like IIS 6. I found IIS 6, and I quite like it, because IIS 6 is running on what version of Windows? 2003. What's with 2003? It's end of life, which makes this lots of fun. You know, you've over 500,000 targets. I mean, potentially vulnerable machines. I'm trying to get you into the hacker mindset. Like, this is how I look at the world. My mother once said, you're very paranoid. And I said, if you looked at the world the way I did, you would be too. But I also decided to go, yes. So we also talked about, did anyone catch Felix's talk yet, just after before mine? He talked about Eternal Blue and SMB. Samba? So that's the kind of // whack UNC paths. Now, if you want to go looking for UNC paths that are open for people to play with and download from files, this is 883,000 SMB servers worldwide that you can connect to without any single version of authentication. Now, if you're wondering what the username and password for this is, it's most likely guessed in blank, or if there's a password at all. Now, the thing is, you go looking for things like this, and you will find time machine backups. You will find photo directories. You will find corporate information. And you can scan this and download it, and no one will know you've been there because you'll have used a VPN, right? Because, you know, your IP is tied to you, so don't do that. So use a VPN. Did I say that out loud? Anyway, never mind. I have a very interesting thing today, and I get to do it because I've been looking forward to this since this morning. You know Amazon S3? Great. Do you know what they're great at? They have a thing called a bucket. Everyone understand what a bucket is? It's a great place to find information. Now, I'm very lucky, and we are very lucky today, that a gentleman has written a piece of software that I can steal. And he put it on GitHub. And he wrote this thing called Bucket Stream. And Bucket Stream uses two very cool techniques. One is called a certificate transparency log. If you haven't seen Scott Helm's talk at NDC London, or I think he might be doing it today, certificate transparency logs show you when people have registered a certificate. And by using that, instead of brute forcing S3 bucket names, we are just getting what people are registering and then trying to find stuff. Now, the person in question who's written this actually exists in the real world and is sitting here. David Prince, can you get up and take a round of applause, stand up and say hello? So if you want to complain about someone's code, he's right here. You know, you can do it in person, and that means you have to be nice. Code bill. What? Oh, code bill. Right, now, what does this look like in real terms? It's running right now. And what have we found today? This. These are all like, oh, unified staging. That could be interesting. Now, what's cool is we're finding different S3 buckets that are open or have, now the ACLs might not all be open, but some of them are. In a lot of cases, they are completely open and readable and writable. So if you ever need some storage, that's where you put it. But also, it just shows you how easy it is to find these things. Because on the internet, everyone knows you're a cat. Now, you can find things like, God knows, like convergence dev and convergence prod, for example, follow the very standard issue of, well, we have a dev version and we have a prod version. You can probably kind of guess they probably have convergence-stage or convergence-test or -UAT because, you know, all developers have three things. So this is a very easy way to find things. Again, also a very easy way to find information that people have been displaying or putting out accidentally online. DoD got done with an open S3 bucket and found a whole lot of contractor data. You can find SQL boxes, you can find SQL backups, config files, JSON files, whatever. It's ridiculous what people are putting in these things, and it's even more ridiculous that they're not securing. So if you have an S3 bucket, close it. Otherwise, people like me will be scanning this. I'm going to try and extend his excellent work and try and scale it much, much wider so we can start kind of doing a Hall of Fame of open buckets, which I think would be kind of cool. Anyway, so that is a guidance on how to do kind of tooling on the web and just use a browser to find your way around. What I'm going to show you now is, that was the S3 buckets thing from last night. We'll skip that. But what I'm going to show you now is how to do Wi-Fi attacking. And this is specifically to do recon around when you're in a location you don't know what's happening. So what I'm going to show you now is a thing called Airmon. And what I'm going to do is use a device like this little here, this $20 adapter, and I'm going to set it into monitor mode. In other words, it's promiscuous. It's just listening to all the traffic going back and forth. So I can see what's happening. So if I do aerodump ng, and I just tell it to go to WLAN 0 mon, in other words, I'm telling it, go use the monitor, it'll tell me all the Wi-Fi networks that are around me right now. And you can see my home network is called Celia, it's named my wife, and I have a Celia guest. I can also see, like, for example, my neighbor upstairs, I can see the couple of Alti boxes that are around, and it doesn't really tell me a lot, but it does tell me what devices are looking, what access points are available. Yeah, I could do better. And I can get more information by running a different command, which is going to be interesting because you can see like what station is going down here. So I'm going to just clear the screen, and I'm going to run TAC WPS, TAC manufacturer, and I'm going to see which one have wireless protected setup and what type of device they're running. So you can see my home network is running a Ubiquiti networks, a unified networks. My guest network is also running on that, but it's not telling you that. And I don't know what the Alti boxes are running, but most likely they're running Motorola's just by the name. And after a little second, I'll find there's a thing called Idrisil. I never can pronounce that. And it'll come up as an Apple device. Hopefully. Come on, video. There we go. Woohoo! So this is an Apple router extreme or a time capsule or something like that. Now, imagine you found there's a whole hidden SSID thing, right? And you can't find it. The easiest way to find it is go looking for all the different things that are there, all right? You'll find a hidden SSID, and it'll have a BSSID, right? So what you do is you look for all the devices that are connected to that. You just listen for things that are connected back and forth to that, and then you deauth them. You knock them off the network. It's a very simple, send a packet to the router, deauth this device, and it goes, okay, right? It's very nice. It deauths the device. What will the device now do? It'll reconnect, and what will it do? It will send out the probe of what it's looking for. And now you have the Wi-Fi name. So if you're ever trying to find a hidden SSID, that's how you do it. You can also do things like, for example, deauth people off a device. If you're in near field, you can then go say, okay, I know you have an Apple device. So what you do is you deauth the Apple device. You tell it, don't let anyone connect, and you stand up a fake access point with the exact same name that's open. You put up a landing page that says, welcome to your Apple Timeport Capsule Extreme XYZ. Please put in your SSID name that we need to update. Put in your SSID name. put in your administrator username and password, and also put in the WPA to PSK file or key you want to use. And people go, okay. You give it about 2 minutes, looks like it's doing something, and then you take down the access point, you stand there as backup, they're going, cool, my router updated, I didn't lose any of my settings, and now you've accessed their Wi-Fi password. Very quickly and effectively by just doing some recon, right? Now, I talked about Nmap, and one of the things with Nmap is it's really hard. It was definitely written by engineers, so they have a ton of command line switches for it. So I like using ZenMap, which tells me how to do things because I'm simple and Irish. And I go tell it, I want to scan the entire subnet of my virtual network to find out what's there. And through the magic of video editing, because this normally takes about 4 minutes, I just get all the information I need. So you'll see about 5 computers eventually popping up on the left-hand side, maybe even 6. So this shows me my router, my gateway, and it also shows me this is my particular gateway. It's on my VM box. It'll then, if I go to the host details, it's got a nice open Windows because Windows are effectively vulnerable, honest. And what it shows me is like what version it thinks it is and the different open ports. But if I go to 128, which is a metasploitable box, this is a purposely built, vulnerable machine for you to play with. It shows me that I'm running port VSFTPD 2.3.4, all right? I want you to remember that, okay? Because I know that version of VSFTPD is vulnerable. Because I've done my recon, what I would normally do is say, okay, here's the ports you're running. I've gone into the exploit DB, I've gone to CVE details, I've checked for, oh, you have this and you have this version, there's a CVE score against it and it's quite bad. So now I can go looking for exploits against that particular machine. And to do that, I'm going to use a technique or a tool called Metasploit. Now, Metasploit is really awesome because it literally takes you from 0 to hacker in about three keystrokes. Very easy. But what is, for me, what makes it, it just shows you how quick you can go from I know nothing to having done a bit of recon to now being able to get a shell or an exploit on a machine. So if we were to do this here, you just do MSF console in Kali, and it takes a little bit of time to to fire up. A quick shortcut is start the Postgres service first. And if you do that, it'll cut down the time. I always look at, like doing, one of my little things is I like to go find the cow banner. So you just keep typing banner until you find the little cow. And I kind of found him because he's cute. And what you can do then is type help and you can get some commands. Now we can link this back up to the ZenMap or the Nmap database. So I'll have all the list of hosts I've already found. And I'm now going to use that database together. But that's a bit more complicated, so I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to use an exploit, Unix FTPD, VSFTPD 234 backdoor. All right? If I do info, it says this backdoor was introduced into the blah, blah, blah between June 30th, 2011 and July 1st, 2011. So you had 3 days. According to the most recent information available, the backdoor was removed on July 3rd, 2011. So there was a particular malicious backdoor introduced into open source software. Oh, wow. So I'm going to set the remote host, the host I want to attack, to attack. Very complicated. I just have to go and copy the IP address in. All right? Set the remote host. Now what I do is type exploit. Hacking, done. I now have root shell on the machine. If I do the following command, which I think is who am I? Here we go. I'm root. Yay! And uname-a tells me what machine I'm running on. It's Linux Metasploitable, blah, blah, blah. So I have root on your machine. Is that bad? Yeah, it's okay. You have very high standards, Zoe. I'm dying to see your talk. But no, I have root. I would consider that okay. I have low threshold for awesomeness. So root is good. Now, when I show this to people, they go, that's nice. That's nice. Where's your hoodie? Where's your massive amount of typing? Where's your like really intense like CSI effect? And I says, fine, let me show you that. And this is, what is this called again? Armitage. So Armitage has a very similar nice UI. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to, instead of having to do all the scanning at first, I'm going to integrate this together and go tell it to go scan some information for me. And I'll just, again, through the magic of video editing, once Niall learns how to type, I click OK. It brings up a nice set of machines for me that I know I can hack. So this makes it a little bit easier, right? Because, you know, now I understand what I'm doing. And what I can do now is I can go scanning for vulnerabilities in the application or in the OS. So I can do this thing here and it says, great, right-click, I can do scan, because I'm a hardcore hacker. And I go find attacks, because I'm a lazy hacker. Now, by the way, being lazy is not a bad thing in programming. We call it automation now, when you have to do things twice. So it says happy hunting. I right-click. It goes attacks. I go to FTP. I go down to the WSFTPD backdoor. Click. It fills in all the details I need to know. I click launch. I wait a couple of seconds. Red lightning. Come on. Yeah, that means it's hacked. All right? Now I can interact with it. Because, the other thing was command line. That's what you do on a train to freak the living bejesus out of people. This is what you do at home when you're trying to learn how to do things. Okay? By the way, have you ever ran Hacker Typer on like a train? Do you know what Hacker Typer is? Go to hackertyper.net, go nuts, and just do it on a train, and every so often, do this with this thing, the giant aerial, and watch people freak out, especially if you've got the little black hoodie, and just flick it up and go. And then furtively look over at somebody and go, freaks people out. I can see what you're doing. Now, that is how you would do exploitation. This is how you would find, like literally going from recon, I now know what's on the network, to looking at CVE databases, and then going from there to find other information. I always show people the hard way, using ZenMap and CV search and Metasploit together, and then I show you the easy way, because then you understand how simple it really is, but also how much work they've tied up to make it easier for you. Because this is the life lesson. Ladies and gentlemen, how many of you are married? Okay. How many of you are like, my wife has a thing called husband points. Everyone heard of husband points? Husband points are amazing. Husband points are things you can use when you've screwed up bad. They literally are get out of jail free cards, and they're literally like spending points on bonus points on airplanes. So if you really screwed up bad, you kind of have to give 40 bonus points or something. So we have husband points. It's a joke we run between us, because when I come in, I just go, I just bought this. It cost us 10,000 kroner. She goes, what? I went, you didn't think to ask me first? How many husband points are we looking at? She goes, at least 3 glasses of wine. Done. Right. I went, okay. So I rock up, and I come in, and I go, honey, the photos disk is dead. She's going, what? I said, the photos disk is dead. She goes, what do you mean dead? And I said, it's dead. It's in there clicking. It's like a dead cockroach. It's going, and she's going, what does that mean? I said, all the photos are gone. She said, all the photos are gone? I said, all the photos are gone. She goes, the holiday photos? Yes. The baby photos? Yes. The wedding photos? Yes. The world tour photos? Yes. Jesus, Niall, what are we going to do? And I said, Steve, give it a minute. It'll be downloading from the internet. I've just put in a new disk. Why didn't you start with that? And I said, very simply, you wouldn't know how awesome I was if I just came in and said, I fixed the photos disk, would you? Life lesson. Never give away a chance to prove how awesome you are. I said there'd be life skills in this, right? You might learn hacking, but this is also human hacking. So this is a thing, but please don't do it to ruin your marriage. It's not a good thing. I don't like the legal fees. Anyway, so this is beef. This is a 48-ounce steak, or what my butcher sent up to me from Ireland, because it costs the same as a fish finger in Norway. And it is an insane piece of beef, and I look at it. I love staring at this photo. This is my life accomplishment I wish to have, to survive eating this. Now, I love how they just have a sprig of rosemary on the side. There's nothing else required. So beef stands for the Browser Exploitation Framework. It is a single JavaScript file that you can inject into websites, and by doing so, take control of machines and have a lot of fun with peoples. Now, I like to do this one because here's the demo. It's very simple. We log in using beef because it's the demo. And what's really kind of cool about this is it gives you a nice, simple overview of what's happening. There is very little on screen right now. I can see I've had some previously hooked browsers because we use a lure, in other words, something to catch people, and then we use a hook.js to catch you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to my Windows 10 machine, and I'm going to go to the particular URL that I want that has the JavaScript injection. It's a butcher's website, where you buy beef, and it looks very standard issue, nothing scary about it whatsoever. You'll see on the left-hand side, the little icon will shift into online, meaning I now have a connection to you. So I've now got a connection back to that particular browser. By clicking on it, I can get information about the browser. I can see that you're running, for example, IE11, because you don't like yourself. You're running Windows 10. You have Shockwave Flash installed for some reason, and you have a couple of other different things here, and it's a hooked page is the butcher. It has no page referrer, but now I can also use different exploits. And you can see things like social engineering, because social engineering is a lot of fun, because you get to play with people's heads. And we're going to send Clippy to the browser, because who doesn't like Clippy? Kill it with fire, right? If I click execute, and what we're going to do is we're going to say, thanks for upgrading your browser. Look forward to having you on the web. So we're going to ask them to upgrade their browser, because IE11 is the best browser for downloading another browser. Now, Clippy had turned up. Now, who wouldn't click on that? Imagine Clippy turning up on your desktop, and you could send it a particular like new Flash update. You can do different things. Like one of the ones that I think is really handy about this, when I show this off, people are going, why do you use Clippy? Because the first thing you want to do is click to get rid of the little bastard. Now, so what about things like using petty theft and grabbing people's Facebook accounts? Because everyone likes using Book of Face, and we just click execute, and we have a nice website here, and in a couple of seconds, boom. Would you put in your username and password here? No, not if it was my website. But if you're not expecting this, people will put information here quite willy-nilly, no problem. And I just have Niall's password, click login, it goes away. Awesome. I've done something right. Username and passwords rock still. Anyway, and then I get the information back. When I go and click on the command, I can see that Niall's password has appeared. Okay, eventually, come on, Niall, you can do this. Did I put in a lot more pauses in this than I thought? There it is. Whew. Jesus, stop. This is why you should record the videos as if you're a lunatic. And you can see here I can put in the password and I get the information back. It's very, very simple. I just did a quick injection, do things. Now, the worst part is I can automate all this. I'm just showing it because I want to just show you what you can do. Like the fake notification bar, this is a kind of a throwback to the old style. Do you remember we used to have, say, this page wants to run a particular ActiveX component, for example? So the one I'm going to send is this website wants to run the Java plugin by Microsoft. So because, who wouldn't? And it just, what the problem is, on such a large screen, it's very hard to see it. This thing just drops underneath the toolbar. It kind of appears, no one will really notice it, but it's one of those things that I think that, it's kind of interesting because you can get people to do stuff. And they'll inject stuff and they'll click on links and they'll download. You can also detect if you've got LastPass or Flash and get them to put in a new LastPass or Flash update. Here, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do tab napping. So tab napping, what it does is, how many of you use Chrome or any form of browser and you have 80 tabs open? You don't know anything's going on? Yeah. And there's music going on up in one place. And you don't know where it is. What this idea is, it takes advantage of, if I go back a little bit, I'll show you what has happened. Sorry. Come back. We'll go back to tab napping. So what tab napping does is it takes advantage of, if your tab has been asleep for a while, that we're going to change what's in the tab. So when you come back to it, it'll go, oh, must do something. So here what we're going to do is redirect you to Gmail. All right, now this is the old Gmail login. But it automatically, what will happen is, you'll see in a second, it'll just go flick. There we go. And it'll appear like this. And you'll think, oh, I've got something. Oh, I better log back in. I've been logged out. So I'm just putting in some random information. And what's really cool is it redirects you back to the actual correct login because I haven't been logged in. But I've managed to steal your Gmail credentials by just doing something which is very simple, watching if there's no thing happening on your machine, and when you're doing something, just go, whoop. See what this hand's doing? No, neither did I. It's a very simple attack. It's called a pop under or a tab napping attack. Exceptionally simple to do. Just a piece of JavaScript, and you just do redirect. Now, this is a hook.js. Most browsers will detect that this is a bit funky. So you can do a couple of things. One is you run it through a minifier and then an uglifier, and then a minifier again. And generally that will kind of confuse because the hash algorithm will look a bit differently. But what you should be doing is, this is one of the more nasty things if you find XSS on a website. Because when you inject this, it doesn't do the alert one, redirect pop-ups rubbish. This gives you interactive control with the client. This allows you to screw with their head. You can take, now, and I joke a little bit, but this is a very effective delivery mechanism for malware. Get them to download a file. Get them to download any type of information from you, and all of a sudden, boom, I can do things. And this is a quick delivery mechanism. This is why ad networks are very dangerous, because if they get drive-by downloads where someone just manages to just inject something onto you, then your machine's compromised and you don't even know about it. Do you know it costs $2,000 for a reverse engineering toolkit to be able to take out the blue light in a blue light in a driver for a webcam. $2,000 is what it costs. You literally open up the DLL. You go in, you say, if on, light equals on. You just comment out that line or just say if 1 equals 1 or whatever, and it ignores that command, so the light never pops on. You deliver this as here's an update for your webcam. People download it, and I've got access to your webcam. Now, we have known there's been a massive spate of this with the kind of, Black Shades malware, which was using for remote control and spying on people. I think they showed it also in Mr. Robot, for example, just an example of doing this. If you haven't watched Mr. Robot, it's a fairly decent, accurate portrayal of a lot of the hacking techniques. But what has made it very, very difficult is that this also leads to other things, which is like what I think Einar Otto was talking about, like in his whole dark web project of people doing revenge porn, where they're literally doing what we're calling sexploitation, where we will get you in a state of undress or compromise and then send you a request for money, or we will post the photos. Remember, hackers, in some cases, are people like me, who are literally kind of doing this with white hat and trying to get you to be protected. But there's a lot of people who are just doing without the morals and ethics. So if you take away those, that's the playing field you're on. So remember, not everyone is playing by the same nice rules and morals that you are. So if someone is going, I can make a buck off you, I will. And unfortunately, it is also doing the psychological damage, and the psychological attacks are much more effective than the technical ones. That's why social engineering is so difficult at times. Now, if we do a little bit more, I'm going to show you a thing which is, does anyone recognize this character? Venom. Venom is Eddie Brock, or he's the major kind of nemesis for Spider-Man. But Venom is also an injection technique used to inject shellcode into executables to make them into malware. And it is very difficult to use, as I'm about to demonstrate, because there's no point in showing you how malware works without showing you how to write it too, and how difficult it is to do it. So to do this, you just type MSF Venom. First off, we're going to set up a handler. So we're going to say where you're going to dial home to. So I've told it this is now a listener. Okay, it's a command and control. So I'm saying I'm here doing something, and it's just setting up a listener for me to do things. Okay? This is setting up so that when my executable dials home, it knows what to do. I type in MSF Venom, TAC, I think it's F, no P, program, Windows, come on now, this can't type. All right, wait for it. Interpreter, and reverse TCP. In other words, when the type of injection shell I want you to use is when you get opened, create a TCP socket back to me, and I'll tell you what to do. Okay, it's a payload delivery mechanism. And I'm going to tell it to use the local host, which is me. So that's the name of the machine I want to use. This could be a DNS, it could be an IP address, it could be something like using dynamic DNS, for example, and it'd say just do CNC at whatever. And this is my machine here. I'm going to say use the exit port is 4444. I could do this out of port 80, 443, whatever. And I'm going to say use a file type exe, and I'm going to pipe this out to plink.exe. Okay? I could do this to flash updater.exe, for example. I could call it whatever. And this will inject shellcode, which will make a machine now vulnerable when I try and download and run it. Okay? So it's just going to run. I'm going to go onto my Windows machine. I'm going to run plink. It tries to tell me something's wrong. I click run anyway, because I'm a Windows user. And I use Windows. I do this a lot, but nothing happens. But on the back, what will happen is, wait a second, woo, sending stage is sending information back because ET's phoned home. I said, ET, do stuff. And it tries to do things. And I'm going to now interact with it on a session level. So this gives me remote control of the machine. So what I want to do first is get a listen session so I can see that I'm running on desktop as Niall. And I'm going to connect to session 3 because that's the one I have. And now, if I do sysinfo, it'll tell me I'm running on this desktop, x64 build, British, UK, English, in workgroup, build number of Windows. Okay, so I know I'm on that machine now. So what I think I should do is load a thing called a different command control software called Espia. And Espia allows me to take a screenshot of the desktop or whatever you're running at that time. And it's very difficult. You just call it screen grab. Okay, wait for it, done. Press that, and it pops up, that's what's on my desktop. So that's the remote user's desktop. They just clicked a file. It went, are you sure? And I went, yes. And now what I plan to do is I'm going to go back into Windows, I hope. I think if they remember the demo. Come on. Still doing things. Load. incognito. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get a new local user on the machine. So I'm going to gain local access, because remote access is always handy if you can gain more access to the machines and keep it up and running. So I can see here right now that I have an NDC demo, Niall demo. There's nothing on the machine. There's only one person. That's me. Okay, I own the box. I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to do a thing called get system. I'm going to elevate myself to system administrator. Done. Get system, finished. Then I'm going to add a new local user, because we need a local user on the machine to do things. And it's detect ASNL, password 1234, exclamation mark, super secure. It's added a new user. However, the new user doesn't really have permissions. So we might add them to the local user group of administrators, because who doesn't like being an administrator? You don't, but root group, right? Do that. Very, very simple. I go back into Windows. You haven't noticed anything. I've just gone over, go back again, and now I have a new administrator user. So I have a local administrator user. You want to know if someone's infected your network? If you've got a machine that goes up and down like a trampoline, like a dog on a trampoline, okay, and it suddenly stops and it works, somebody fixed it. Somebody fixed it for a reason. Because they were going, this is handy to have. I wish it didn't go up and down. Okay, it's like going home at Christmas, and Dad says, can you fix my email? And you go, sure, and you fix it, and it works. That's what people do, and that's how you detect a hacker. There's an anomaly, you know, and you find out there's something wrong. So here's how we're going to just rob a bank instead, because one of the things I like showing people is how we are going to attack using, if I'm on the same network as you, and we're going to try and steal credentials from you. Now, the thing is, before I start, the bank is not vulnerable. The bank in itself is not vulnerable. What I am taking advantage of is a number of different techniques, and it's a very narrow margin right now, and it doesn't really work since about new versions of Chrome have popped up and new versions of IE. But what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of me being on the same network as you, and then routing your traffic and screwing with it. And by that, we're going to rob sir.no. So first off, I think I'm going to run a thing is I'm going to show you what an ARP table looks like. An ARP table is the command, it is the connection between the MAC address and the IP address. In other words, the visiting address and the sender's address. And you can see here, my gateway is going out of 6D, and I have another computer that has a D4-D2. So in other words, that's my attack box. And what I'm going to run is a thing called man-in-the-middle framework from ByteBleeder. And this is going to do an ARP spoof. So I'm going to change where your gateway is, and I'll become your gateway, and I can intercept your traffic. I'm also going to run a reverse DNS and a HSTS bypass. So it's a couple of different techniques and technologies put together to allow me to strip HTTPS off a network or a particular connection. You can see here now that without any notifications to the user, that my gateway is changed to D4-T2, which is the same as my attack box. So at this point, I can now intercept information from you, and I can change it on the fly. So I'm going to go to www.sir.no. All right? And that is live internet traffic. There is nothing screwed with that, except the problem is Niall has been drinking and doesn't know how to use a computer. So it takes me a little bit of time to get the magnifier working. And I'm short for time, and I like telling this joke, but we'll scooch forward to it, and we'll get it. There we go. So we now have www.sir.no. We're gone from the World Wide Web to the weird World Wide Web, kids. Right? This should be still playing. And when I scooch over to the login page, okay, I can go to NetBank, and I'm still over HTTP, meaning I'm now over plain text, meaning I can sniff what you're doing, right? So if I do this, and I log, because the reason I picked this particular bank is they've got a great thing, log in without bank ID, which is awesome, because I can put in a username and password. And if I'm just a little bit tight for time, I'm just going to skip forward a bit, and it just does things. But I can find here, there's my username and password from a bank. Now, I can do the exact same thing with Google. So if I go to google.com, and we all know, now you can see how old this is, because it's Christopher Lee dies. This is January 2016, I think. So anyway, the idea here is that we don't lie to Google. Everything you type into Google, it remembers, right? So when I go to www.google.no, it is a 4 Ws over HTTP. All right? I learned how to use a magnifier in this demo. And if I skip forward a little bit, and I click on to sign in on my very wide screen, I also can see up here that it has gone to account.google.no, also on HTTP, meaning I can now sniff your password. And your Google account gives me access to a ton of information because it's an authentication provider. So if you don't, how many people don't have 2FA on Google or Facebook or Twitter? I love being in the security audience. You don't? Do you want to come up here and do the test in a minute? So here, as you can see, I can just get the password out of Google very, very quickly. All right? Now, one final demo before I go. This is a very simple one. But we always say that remote or local access trumps everything. So I'm going to show you how to hack a Windows machine, which is very much this. So what I'm going to do here is show you my dev box at home, which is secured by me almost. It doesn't have BitLocker running on it. But here you can see that it does have my, I apologize for the flashing out. It's very hard to do screen recording when you're trying to do this. And what I'm basically going to do is reboot the machine using a tool called Conboot, which allows me to change the memory as it's loaded. And it does this really cool hacker effect. It's the old style Commodore 64 loading screen, I think, right? And what it'll allow me to do is when the machine boots in, allow me to create a new local user. Does everyone know the sticky keys bypass for Windows? Excellent. Sticky keys bypass for Windows is awesome, but this allows me to do it without having to do a recovery CD. And what I'm going to do is add a new net user, me, for demo, and I'm going to add it as an administrator, and then I'm going to reboot the machine, which gives me local admin rights on a machine without having to show I was ever there or crack your password, which is really cool. Because if you're ever trying to bypass someone's logins, it's really, really hard. So what I'm going to try and do is here, I'm just going to add you to new administrator user groups. Okay, done. I'm going to plug out the other thing and reboot it. So I've got nothing there. You can see I've only got 3 users on the side. All right, I unplug this, and my machine is so fast when I reboot. Done. Screw you, Mac. So I now have a demo user, and if I put in the password that goes with it, password 1234, it goes, Windows goes, hi, I'm happy you're here. I missed you. It actually does. It's really nice. Windows is very pleasant to me. It actually comes up as an administrator. Now, the funny thing is, this also works for Mac. So if you have a Mac that you can't bypass or can't connect to, Conboot works for the Mac. It is hugely expensive. It's $19. And a USB key. And this is why stupid stuff like this is so simple. Because and the thing is, this is where saying local access trumps everything. But the defense against this, file vaults on Mac and BitLocker on Windows or some drive encryption. Now, I have just gone through a number of different hacking your neighbor strategies and some life skills. I'm going to open up to the floor. Actually, one fun story just before I'm here. Patricia, do you remember when we had a discussion a long time back? The demo I just showed you was how we would hack. Yeah. So Patricia and I had a very fun conversation. And please, would you stand up and can I give her, Patricia a round of applause? She fixed the voting problem we were having. I think she deserves, for her absolute greatest work, she needs a huge round of applause. If you don't know why, she stopped us being screwed by people doing vote counting problems, and because we had a discussion, and I said, this is how I would do it, by just getting on the same network as you. And I showed you the recon techniques I would have done by getting in there. And she kind of took my words and said, I can make it better and tell people in Norwegian. And I went, thank you. But she also put her very creative spin, and I do think you were underappreciated at the time, so well done. Any questions? 3, 2, 1, go get coffee. Thank you so much. By the way, please vote. If you like the talk, give it a green. If you didn't like the talk, come talk to me.